Hi, welcome again to AP European History. My name is Paul Sargent, and this is the fourth and final installment in our lectures on World War I. We kind of left off a little abruptly in the last one. Sorry about that. I was running out of time on the video. Anyway, so we're going to pick up where we left off at the last year of the war. Germany, because of the Russian Revolution, now didn't have to commit any troops on their eastern front, on the side with Russia. So what they decided was, hey, let's take all of those troops, let's send them to the western front, and let's move this thing. And so in March all the way to July of 1918 is this last German offensive, this push, and it actually moves the trenches for the first time in really, at this point, 3.5 years. And it works to an extent. The Allies counterattack, they fight back, and what they have going for them now is that America is in the war and American troops are starting to flood into France. They're bringing with them not only a whole lot of numbers, but they're also bringing with them like a new energy. These American troops haven't been fighting the war, sitting in trenches, being shelled and shot at for basically 4 years at this point. They've been at home hearing about this war and maybe getting ready for it and all of this. It's a new exciting thing. And they bring this enthusiasm with them that helps, along with their numbers, to stop the German advance. Well, with this German advance stopping and people calling for change, a very similar thing happens in Germany that happened in Russia. The Kaiser, who is the head of the Hohenzollern family, it's been in charge for hundreds of years, much like the Romanovs were in Russia, he abdicates on November 9th of 1918, starting a very quick end to the war. They establish a republic, and that republic then negotiates an armistice. And the armistice is set for the 11th hour on the 11th day of the 11th month of 1918. It's pretty conveniently, nicely, easily understood kind of thing. To this day, most countries that were involved in the war celebrate November 11th as Armistice Day. We here in the United States have taken this on to be Veterans Day, to honor not just those veterans from World War I, but veterans from lots and lots of wars. The armistice is signed. And there's a whole story that goes alongside of this one. I don't have time for it in this video, but I'll try and put it somewhere else. There's an interesting back and forth here. So we have casualties in the war. There's an absolute human cost here. Nearly 10 million soldiers die in the war. There are civilian deaths. That number, a very high number, somewhere between 2 and 4 million civilian deaths. In one case, there is a genocide of Armenians by the Ottoman Turks. But there's also this lost generation, which is a term we use for a group of writers that come after the war and are really affected by it. But also, there's truly a lost generation in many of these countries, in Britain, France, Germany. You have great swaths of young men who no longer exist. And it creates a problem for the social structure. Young women between the ages of 18 and 25 don't have a lot of choices for guys and for husbands because, many of them aren't there anymore. So here's a very brief chronology. I'm not going to go through it. So if you want to take a look at it, please pause now, take a look at the chronology, and then we'll move on. All right. In Germany and Austria-Hungary, there are revolutionary upheavals. The losses of the war and this weird period between the end of the war and the signing of peace treaties does create some revolutionary things. Germany has a November Revolution. There are communist undertones to this whole thing. And there's divisions. Social democrats who want to have a socialist system, but within some sort of participatory party-run system, like had existed in Germany, but of course without a Kaiser at the top of it. And then communists who want to get rid of classes and those sorts of things. The communists try some revolutions and they fail. This, though, leaves a legacy. And a lot of this, if you've been watching my videos, you've seen that as I got towards World War I was saying, hey, this is kind of all leading towards World War I. Well, a lot of what we're going to talk about today kind of leads towards World War II. And these failed communist revolutions kind of leave a bitter taste and a fear in the country, and that fear is of communism. There are going to be groups that are going to rise. The National Socialist Party is going to be one of them. You might know them as the Nazis, and they're going to start off as an anti-communist group. Austria-Hungary is going to end as an empire. The ruling family there, the Habsburgs, who've been in power for many hundreds of years, they're going to come to an end. And you're going to have all of these national groups. This has been an ongoing problem in the Austrian Empire that are pushing for their own independence. And so we come to Versailles. Again, this German-French rivalry, man, it gets really heated. Where you lost to the Germans in 1871. They proclaim their empire in Versailles in the Hall of Mirrors, France's greatest room and its greatest building. And so where do you hold the peace treaty to try and get back at the Germans? Back in Versailles and in the Hall of Mirrors. And so there's different things that go in. Going into it, different countries have different aims. All right. Woodrow Wilson comes in with the 14 points. Very basically, national self-determination. If you have a group of people with a common language and culture, they should have their own country. Freedom of the seas for everyone to trade however they want to. A League of Nations where people can talk out their problems and provide mutual security against an aggressor. And there are a number of others that go along there, but those are sort of the big ones. Other states tend to be more pragmatic. That means they look more realistic and less idealistic at the problem. David Lloyd George of Britain really wants Germany to pay. They also want to expand their empire because that's sort of the thing that Britain is really good at this point. Georges Clemenceau is very concerned with national security, but he's also very concerned with making Germany pay because the entire Western Front was fought on French soil. I mean, it's devastated them. Well, Belgian soil too, I guess. And there's this overriding fear of Bolshevik revolutions, so they don't invite Russia at all into all of this. So these big three guys, Wilson, George, and Clemenceau, dominate the entire proceedings. There's a whole lot of side stories of what ifs along here. Ho Chi Minh shows up and asks for national self-determination for the people of French Indochina, or as he calls them, Vietnam. They say no. More on that later. Lawrence of Arabia shows up with the Arabian nationality that he's created and asks for freedom for them. They say no. There's issues that follow on that. The League of Nations is like the only thing of Wilson's 14 points that gets adopted. All right. There are some key provisions that you should know. This is number one, the War Guilt Clause. They force Germany to admit total guilt for the entire war. And they charge them huge reparations. They put on them such a burden of cash that they can't pay that. They force a reduction of their military down to 100,000. They get rid of their air force. They scuttle all of the U-boats. They sink them. Germany is forced to give back Alsace-Lorraine to France. Big surprise there. And then they recreate Poland. It's been away for a while. It got kind of cut up between Prussia and Austria and Russia. Well, now it's back. And they're going to take away part of Germany or Prussia in order to create this. And they're actually going to split Germany into two parts. There's a little part called East Prussia, which is going to be separated. Hitler's going to want to get that back together. And so Germany and the Germans are unhappy because they feel that this is not a negotiated peace. It's a dictated peace. And so you see a lot of propaganda like this. Here's Germany characterized in the middle with France pummeling them and Britain holding them down and making fun of them. So we're approaching the end of our video here. Look, the big picture is that Versailles sets up a series of events that doesn't really solve anything. And ultimately, it's going to set the stage for not only World War II, but for many of the conflicts which are going to occur and many of the problems that are going to occur in the 20th century. So that's about it. My name's Paul Sargent. Thanks for watching.